Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Compass Online. My name is Jake, and as always, it is great to be here with you today. But sometimes I say that line a little too quickly because you might not have been with us before. And if you haven't been, I just want to especially say welcome to you as well. And I just want to let you know what you're going to be in for here over the next less than an hour. So you're going to hear a little bit of talking from me. Sorry about that in advance. And you're going to have a great message from our senior pastor, Jeff Griffin. Today he's going to be talking about this guy in the Old Testament named Joseph and how he was able to reconcile some relationships that were broken in his life. It's going to be super practical and super impactful, and I'm really excited to be able to get to it. And the last thing that we're going to do together is sing some songs. You know, one of those is going to be coming up here in just a couple of seconds called I Thank God. So I want to ask you a question. What do you thank God for? You know, today I'm thankful for community. I'm thankful for my church family, for my immediate family, for my friends, the people that are surrounding me who know me and care for me and support and love me. I pray that you have that as well. Because here at the Compass Church, we like to say that we're a church family. And you can only be a family if you're known. And that's one of the main reasons we want to make sure that if you haven't already done it, fill out that 2021 church census for us. It's just a great way for us to know that you've been here, know some basic information about you. You know, last week, Jeff said that he was 28 years old. I love you, Jeff. It made me chuckle a little bit. But seriously, just gonna take less than 2 minutes for you to fill that out. Just gets us some basic information to let us know more about our church family. So again, if you haven't done it, you can go to thecompass.net/census2021 or scan the QR code on the screen. Just make sure you do it before October 4th. Now, with all of that said, we talked about this song that we were gonna sing. Well, let's get ready to do that together right now.
Come on, put your hands together. Guys, God has been so good, so we're gonna celebrate His goodness today. Wanting a place to hide this weary soul, this bag of bones. And I tried with all my might, but I just can't win the fight. I'm slowly drinking a bag of bones. And just when I ran out of the road, I met a man told me that I was not alone.
Want to welcome everyone back to week 6 of our series called Whiplash, Surviving Life's Twists and Turns. You know, I love the Compass Church. We are unique and beautiful in many ways. One of them that is real precious to me is that we are all people from different towns, and yet we are one family. We got people from Bolingbrook and Naperville and Wheaton and the surrounding communities, and yet we're one church, related, connected, in unity. You know, that's pretty remarkable. Historically, the people of our towns have not gotten along. In fact, back in the foundings of Wheaton and the foundings of Naperville, there has been conflict since the beginning. Back in the 1830s, long time ago, Joe Naper founded Naperville and Warren Wheaton founded Wheaton. And from the start, Naperville did better. The people of Wheaton were jealous and struggled with some inferiority complex. Naperville just grew faster. The population flourished beyond Wheaton. In fact, the county of DuPage was started and Naperville became the county seat. I am presently in Naperville at Central Park, which was the location of the county courthouse for nearly 3 decades. Well, Warren Wheaton was not to be outdone. He was a competitor, and he was determined to beat Naperville. He had a strategy. When the railroad was going to be run from Chicago going west, they were trying to decide between running it through Wheaton or through Naperville. Warren Wheaton said, I'll give the railroad all the land they need for the tracks and the stations. And so the railroad went through Wheaton instead, and it was good for population growth in that town. Warren Wheaton also took some of his land and designed a downtown area where he made the roads and the lots. And he announced free lots to anyone who will come and build a house. Wow, did that work? He said to a young startup college, free land if you'll come here. And that's how Wheaton College got on the map. Sure enough, Wheaton started to grow, and it got to a place where Warren Wheaton was convinced his population exceeded that of Naperville. And it was at that moment, back in 1867, that he initiated a campaign to steal the county seat from Naperville. Right here at the county courthouse, there was a vote to move the county seat from Naperville to Wheaton. And to everyone's amazement, Wheaton won by 27 votes. On the day of that vote, there was a fight that ensued. The people of Naperville were so upset, convinced that the vote was a fraud, that they were rigging it, that they were double voting, that they were stuffing the ballot box. Sound familiar? Well, the fight was so severe on the day of the vote, right here at the courthouse, that it came to fist fighting and rock throwing. A guy actually died in that fight right here. Wheaton declared, we're the new county seat. Warren Wheaton gave up some land to build the new courthouse in Wheaton, a beautiful building. But Naperville didn't buy it. They said, no, you're not the county seat. We still are. And they refused to give up the county records. And without the county records, Wheaton couldn't really roll as the new county seat. So, a year after the vote, in the winter, it was December of 1868, 100 men from Wheaton conducted what is now known as the Midnight Raid. Under the cover of darkness in the middle of the night, they snuck from Wheaton down to Naperville. They came to the courthouse right here, broke into it, and began to load the documents into their wagons. They had just about gotten away with this raid without the people here waking up. But the county judge, his name was Hiram Cody, resident of Naperville, he woke up, pulled back his shades, and saw the raid in progress. He ran to the local church and rang the bell, waking up all the citizens of Naperville. And they were horrified what they saw. They saw the people of Wheaton taking off leaving with their horses and their wagons and the stolen documents. The men from Naperville in the middle of the night gathered at the local tavern. They were irate and they decided to wage war. No kidding. They all ran home and they got their rifles and decided we're going to go up to Wheaton and fight. At that tavern, they started planning their attack and drinking beer and planning and drinking. And as the night progressed, the legend has it, they drank so much that they were in no condition to fight or go anywhere. They went back home to bed. Friends, what a story. Can you imagine the hatred that existed? It's only natural. Tension, conflict comes to human beings everywhere we look. There are comparisons and jealousies. There are hurts and wrongs and bitterness that can last for a long time. And sure enough, Joseph was dealing with relational conflict. Joseph thought all the conflict with his brothers was behind him. His brothers hated him. Remember, they had thought of killing him. They had decided to sell him into slavery. But those years were now 2 decades in Joseph's past. He was doing well in a new land with a new job and a new family. But wouldn't you know, those brothers he had conflict with re-entered his life. You see, people from neighboring countries around Egypt started traveling to Egypt to buy food. Joseph had led a campaign to store up grain during the 7 years of plenty. And now that they had moved into the 7 years of famine, people were starving to death, including Joseph's family. I'm turning now to Genesis chapter 42, verses 1 and 2. When Jacob, that's Joseph's dad, when Jacob learned that there was grain in Egypt, he said to his sons, "Why are you just looking at each other?" He continued, "I have heard there is grain in Egypt. Go down there and buy some for us so we don't die." And so 10 of Joseph's brothers traveled all the way to Egypt to buy grain. Reading verse 6. Joseph was governor of all of Egypt and in charge of selling grain to all the people. It was to him that his brothers came. When they arrived, they bowed before Joseph. Friends, this is the fulfillment of the dream Joseph had decades earlier. They bowed before him with their faces to the ground. Joseph recognized his brothers instantly, but he pretended to be a stranger and spoke harshly to them. "Where are you from?" he demanded. Although Joseph recognized his brothers, they didn't recognize him. Decades have passed, but as an Egyptian, Joseph would have also shaved his beard, put makeup on his face, Egyptian attire. I think it's understandable that they didn't recognize Joseph. They didn't anticipate that their little brother would now be in charge of the whole country. And so Joseph's got a problem. They're back in his life. These people he feared, who hurt him more than anybody. What is he going to do? He could have sold them grain and said, "Be gone," or he could interact with these people he had so much conflict with. Friends, we're about to see drama ensue that is absolutely remarkable. Remarkable drama where Joseph is going to teach us principles of dealing with relational conflict that we all must learn. Joseph had an extremely high EQ. His emotional intelligence, his relational skills, they were remarkable. How's your EQ? The truth is, we all have much we can learn from Joseph. Here he is facing these brothers again. You know, I would have been tempted to just sell them the grain and get out of here. But not Joseph. He looks at these men and he cries out, "You're spies! I know you're spies!" I'm thinking, what are you doing, Joseph? What are you up to? Let's find out, shall we? It says in Genesis 42, starting in verse 14, Joseph said to them, "It is just as I told you. You are spies, and this is how you will be tested. You will not leave this place unless your youngest brother comes here. Send one of you to get your brother, and the rest of you will be kept in prison. We can see what Joseph is up to. He wants the youngest brother who's been left behind. 10 of them have come, leaving Benjamin. Benjamin was the youngest. And Joseph wants to see Benjamin. That's understandable because Benjamin is his only full brother. They had not only the same father, but they also have the same mother. And Benjamin was only 10 years old back when the other brothers abused him and sold him into slavery. And so Benjamin had nothing to do with it. He's innocent. And Joseph longs to see this brother who was just a kid when he left and now would be a grown man. And so Joseph says, I'm going to do what it takes to see Benjamin. I'm going to lock up all of my brothers but one, and I will send one back to get Benjamin. The rest of the brothers will be ransomed until I can see Benjamin. Interesting play, but something happens 3 days later. Let me read verse 19. After 3 days, Joseph said to them, tell you what, let one of your brothers stay here in prison. All the rest of you can go and take back grain for your starving households, but you must bring your youngest brother to me. Rather than keeping 9 of them in prison, he's like, you know what, that's not necessary. I'm going to just do 1 in prison. I'll hold 1 ransom until they bring Benjamin. What's the shift? Well, I'm speculating here, but I bet I'm right. In Joseph's mind, this imprisoning of brothers to keep a ransom for Benjamin to be forced to come. In his mind, he was rationalizing it by saying, listen, I've been robbed of my brother. I need to do this. I've got to see Benjamin, so I've got to put them all in prison. That's originally what he said. They're all going to be in prison except the one who goes to get him. Really what we got going on here is some mixed motives. Joseph's convincing himself that it's all because I want to see Benjamin. But he's got a little revenge going on behind the scenes. A little, I spent some time in prison. It'll be good for them all to be in prison. They deserve it by what they did to me. But upon reflecting on it, Joseph's like, wait a minute. I want to see my brother Benjamin, but I don't want to be motivated by punishing all my brothers. I want to separate my mixed motives. One of them's relatively noble. I want to see Benjamin. The other's the hidden, the dark, the unconscious motive. I want to punish them. Joseph's like, yeah, I don't want to do that. So this shift to being more kind, this shift to only keeping one of the brothers ransom and sending them with food for their starving family, Joseph is trying to purify his motivation. Here's a relational principle. Beware of rationalization. Rationalization is when we convince ourselves that what we're doing is noble because we've got one noble motive. A lot of times we have mixed motives behind the scene. We've got our noble motive that we make ourselves feel good about what we're doing, but deep down, sometimes we're not even aware of it. We're driven by more sinister motives to treat people the way we do. And we find ourselves treating people poorly and justifying it, rationalizing it in our own minds. For example, sometimes, I will give my wife the silent treatment. She'll be upset with me about something and pointing out something that I've done, and boy, am I getting mad, and I wanna lash out. And I say, no, there's a principle. If you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all. Flee from temptation. I've got all these biblical principles that I use to rationalize myself. I'm just going to walk away and not say a thing. What a godly man I am. And the truth is, I'm giving Jen the silent treatment. Deep down, I'm wanting to get back at her, and I choose a path to do it that I can rationalize. We got to think through, what am I doing? What's motivating me to do what I'm doing? And be careful of that self-rationalization that Joseph originally was doing. And come to a place where we're like, no, I don't want to treat people poorly, even if in my own mind I can rationalize it. All right? So beware of rationalization. Let's go to Genesis 42, verse 19. Joseph gave orders to fill their bags with grain, to put each man's silver back in his sack. Friends, this is remarkable generosity. People didn't know how much grain they could buy. It was in very short supply. But Joseph says, fill their bags. Give them as much as they can carry. And, Joseph said, give them all their money back, the silver back. Joseph said, this is on me. Wow. This is very generous to a group of brothers who have treated him so tremendously poorly. What's the principle? The principle is show them undeserved kindness. Friends, when it comes to conflict, we find ourselves wanting to return evil for evil, wanting to give people a little of their own medicine. But Joseph is showing them kindness, extreme kindness, when they don't deserve it at all. Friends, this is so important. We not only have to beware of rationalization, where we treat people poorly and justify it in our minds, we need to go above and beyond and treat them with kindness. I'm not going to treat you poorly, I'm going to treat you kindly. This whole undeserved kindness is how we break the cycle of rising hostility. See, the relational cycle of hostility is when, someone treats you poorly, they say something hurtful, and you give them a little zinger back. And then they get mad, and then you get madder. I saw it even last night at my son's soccer game. There was a player on Jake's team who bumped one of the other players, and that player found a chance to bump him back. And then Jake's player, just goes, oh yeah, well, and he got him back a little later in the game. And then it just got worse and worse until the guy on Jake's team just obviously crashed into this player and actually got what they call the red card and was kicked out of the game for his hostility. Well, what happens on the soccer field happens in life. We find ourselves in conflict with people, and one bad treatment leads to further bad treatment, and it just builds on itself. You know what breaks that cycle? Undeserved kindness. Call it grace. It's what God does, God treats sinners with this amazing love, with this offer of forgiveness through what Christ did on the cross. God shows us the way. He says, I give kindness and love to those who don't deserve it, like you. Why don't you do the same? So friends, when we find ourselves angry with someone, in conflict with someone, not only should we prevent ourselves from treating them poorly, we need to say, how can I love them? How can I show tenderness and kindness to them? That will break that vicious cycle of escalating hostility. Well, friends, unfortunately, Joseph's plan backfires. It does not work as he desired. All the brothers come back and they tell their dad, we got great news. Look at all this food. It came free of charge, but here's the problem. The problem is that this guy in charge of Egypt, he kept one of the brothers as ransom because he wants to see Benjamin. And Jacob is so upset. Jacob's like, I can't believe it. I've already lost Joseph, and now I've lost. Simeon was the brother who was kept ransom. I'm not letting you bring Benjamin. I'll only lose him too. And so rather than them returning as Joseph had planned, because of the stubbornness of Jacob, they just call this brother lost. Well, as time went on, they ate through all that food that Joseph had given, and starvation led to desperation. And finally, Jacob's like, fine, take Benjamin, go buy some food. We've got to get something to eat or we'll die. And so they return. They return with all the brothers, this time including Benjamin. Simeon is released from prison, and Joseph dines. He invites all of his brothers to his house. Now, they still don't recognize him, but he wants to be with them. They have a meal together, and then he does something interesting. He does what I will call the silver cup test. He sends them all back with lots of grain, but in Benjamin's bag, he hides Joseph's, silver cup, the royal cup. And you're like, what is he doing? Well, after they leave, they're heading back with all their grain. Joseph sends his soldiers to get them before they get home. And he says, we believe one of you have stolen the prime minister's cup. And they search them and sure enough find the cup in Benjamin's bag. They drag them all back to Egypt, and now Benjamin is in big trouble. Let me read. Genesis 44, verse 30. Joseph said, the one who was found to have the cup will become my slave. Benjamin will now be Joseph's slave. The rest of you can go back to your father in peace. What is Joseph doing? What's up with this cup and framing Benjamin? Well, here's what Joseph is doing. He is designing a situation that is nearly identical to the one where his brothers freely betrayed him in order to be freed of him and improve their own lot. And Joseph says, I wonder if they do that again. They have a chance now to go back home, to be at peace, to have plenty of food. Just leave Benjamin behind. He's testing to see if they've changed. You know, actually, in the first visit, there was a moment when Joseph heard them. They were speaking in Hebrew, and they assumed that the prime minister couldn't understand a word they were saying, but Joseph knew Hebrew. They were saying, maybe this is because of what we did to Joseph. Maybe we're getting in trouble because God is punishing us for what we did to Joseph. Joseph was aware that they felt a measure of conviction, that they were aware of their sin. Now Joseph is wondering, but have they changed at all? Are they repentant? Are they remorseful, desiring to be different people? He's testing to see if they're the same abusive brothers that they once were, or if they have changed. It's interesting. With this test, it is Judah who speaks up. Now that's important because Judah was the one who came up with the idea of selling Joseph into slavery in the first place. But look what Judah says now, verse 30. Judah said, I cannot go back to my father without that boy, Benjamin. Our father's life is bound up with that son. If he sees that the boy is not with us, I think our father will die. He goes on, please, my Lord, let me stay here as a slave instead of the boy, and let the boy return with his brothers. For how can I return to my father if the boy is not with me? I couldn't bear to see the anguish this would cause my father. This Judah is showing great concern for dad, great concern for Benjamin, so much so that he's willing to suffer himself as the slave. Wow. Judah has grown up. Judah has changed. And the test has revealed what Joseph was wondering. They're not the same as they used to be. And seeing this, Joseph decides to reveal himself. To say, I am Joseph, your brother. We'll get to that in a moment, but let me pause on a principle here. The principle is that we must establish necessary boundaries. Here's what I mean. Joseph is looking at these brothers saying, I knew I wanted to see Benjamin, but now that that's done, do I want any more of a relationship with these brothers? Is it safe for me to have a relationship with these brothers? I need to figure out if they're still dangerous as they once were. Because my soul has healed, but it can be hurt again. And so I need to evaluate. I need to understand where they're at and what danger still exists. Because if I find out they're still the same, I'm going to send them back home and I'm going to have a boundary there and not relate to them. But if I find out that they're safe now, I will relate to them freely and with much joy. Friends, we got to do the same thing. Did you know that? There are some people, quite honestly, that are not healthy for us. They are so unhealthy, in fact, that it's necessary to have a relational boundary and to say, knowing what I know, I just can't enjoy this relationship. And so we distance ourselves from those people. I remember once I was shocked, kind of like a Joseph moment. This guy who had caused me so much pain back in high school. He had mistreated me, I would say, abused me through bullying, He was the one I couldn't stand more than any human being. He shows up at my new church. I'm a pastor now. 20 years have passed, and here he is again. It's like Joseph being reconnected with his brothers. And he wants to be in my life. I'm thinking, what do I do about this? This thought came to mind. Well, he wants to be in my life. Maybe I should invite him into my small group. I'm like, what am I doing? All this stress, post-traumatic stress started coming back to me. I took him out to lunch twice. And during those lunches, I had to see what he was made of. He was telling me, Jeff, I'm a different person. I found Jesus. He has changed me. You won't believe how different I am. I'm like, yeah, let's find out. And over lunch, we interacted, and I sought to get to know the new guy. And sure enough, I became convinced that he had changed. And I invited him into my small group, and he has brought me endless joy. Now, the point is, we have to investigate. Don't jump to boundaries. You know, some people are like, boundary, I need a boundary. Do you really? Joseph tested to see if it was absolutely necessary. He found out that it wasn't. We too must test, prayerfully evaluate, maybe even talk with other wives' counsel to see if the boundary is necessary. Friends, remember I told you that Joseph now believes that his brothers are safe, and so he's going to reveal himself. Let's read about that. This is amazing drama. Reading in chapter 45, verse 1. Joseph cried out, "Have everyone leave my presence." Now, he meant all of the royal officials, not the brothers. He wanted to be alone with the brothers. So there was no one with Joseph when he made himself known to his brothers. And he wept so loudly that the Egyptians heard him. The Egyptian staff outside of this throne room could hear the king weeping. Verse 3, Joseph said to his brothers, "I am Joseph." Can you imagine that moment? And he goes on, "Is my father still alive?" But his brothers were not able to answer him because they were terrified. They're like, he had asked them a question, "Is my father still alive?" And they're trying to process what they've just been told. And it's too much. I mean, they imagined Joseph was dead or gone, and not only was he alive and well, but he was this official they had been interacting with all these days. They could not believe it. Joseph had to call him close. Verse 4, then Joseph said to his brothers, "Come close to me." And when they had done so, he said, "I am your brother, Joseph, the one you sold into Egypt." And they finally realized it's true. It's Joseph. What happens next? Look at verse 14. Weeping with joy, Joseph embraced Benjamin, who he hasn't seen since he was a kid, and Benjamin embraced him back. Benjamin did the same. And then Joseph kissed each of his brothers and wept over them. And after that, they began talking freely with him. What a moment of historic reconciliation. These hugs and this kissing is just absolutely beautiful. And I want to draw a final principle out of it. Courageously convey affection. When it comes to someone you've been in conflict with, if you really want to embrace and restore that relationship, you've got to convey your affection, whether that be hugs and kisses or words. And that's often hard. When we've been hurt by somebody, there's a tendency to minimize our emotional vulnerability, which is understandable. But God's Spirit may lead us to courageously say, "I care about you, just wanted you to know." Some gesture of affection is so important. Even a soccer game, at the end of Jake's soccer game, they make those players form a line and shake hands with each of their opponents. It's kind of awkward, "I'm so mad at you, and now I got to shake your hand." Yeah, it's awkward, but do it. Friends, if you've had conflict with your kids, tell them you love them. If you've had conflict with your spouse, tell them in thoughtful words how much they matter to you. If you have conflict with your coworker, find a way to express that you actually care about them. This courageous obedience to the prompting of the Spirit, stepping into expression of affection. That's what Joseph did. And this scene of them embracing and hugging and kissing and talking and catching up and reminiscing is some of the beauty that can arise when we apply the principles that Joseph has taught us. Let's pray. God, I pray for our relationships. They are precious and they're also fragile. And God, this tension, this conflict, we all know it. Would you help us? Would you lead us to courageously love unconditionally like you do, Lord? Would you lead us to implement these principles we see in Joseph's life? And may beautiful health, relational health, be the product of our courageous obedience. Please, Spirit of the living God, guide us, challenge us, and strengthen us to obey and to step in to that conflict. We pray this in Christ's name. Amen. Friends, we got a fun song to close with. It's called No Man is an Island, and it's true. No person is an island. We need each other. These relationships, to just walk away from them and say, forget it, it's broken. No, we can't do that. We got to fight for them. We got to implement those principles so we can see relational health restored.
I won't run, I will stay. I'm not leaving you. I know there's friction here. The struggle makes us new. I wish you never thought you had to go. I wish you never thought you had to leave. Together we can lift each other up. We can build a shelter for the weak. No man is an island we can be found. No man is an island, let your guard down. You don't have to fight me, I am for you. We're not meant to live this life alone. Whoa, whoa, whoa. I see fear in your eyes. There's no safety here. Oh, my friend, let me in. I will share your tears. I wish you never thought you had to go. I wish you never thought you had to leave. We can always lift each other up. We can build a shelter for the weak. Come on, no man is an island we can be found. No man is an island, let your guard down. Please don't try to fight me, I am for you. We're not meant to live this life alone. Oh, oh, oh. The trouble, rain or fire, let's reach out to something higher. Ain't no life outside each other. We are not alone. The trouble, rain or fire, let's reach out to something higher. Eyes open to one another. We are not alone. The trouble, rain or fire, let's reach out to something higher. Ain't no life outside each other. We are not alone. The trouble, rain or fire, let's reach out to something higher. Eyes open to one another. We are not alone. No man is an island we can be found. No man
Hey, thank you one more time for being here with us today. And thank you for your continued partnership. You know, we are all about helping people find and follow God, and your generosity allows us to do that. And even more exciting to me is the fact that over the month of August, we had 60 new households give and join us in that mission for the very first time. So whether you give regularly, whether you've only jumped in once, or whether you never have, just love to encourage you to prayerfully consider doing so. We want more and more people to continue to hear the good news of Jesus, and it's just not possible without you. And one last thing before you go, make sure you fill out the connection card. And if you have any prayer requests, make sure to note them there. We take time every single week to be praying for you. So if there's something specific that you want us to know and pray for, make sure to jot it down before you head out. And the last thing is, if you just want to stay up to date on all things the Compass Church, whether that's one of our individual campus locations or our church overall, one of the best ways you can do that is through our social media accounts. So go ahead, find us on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, or head over to our YouTube channel. Whatever is most interesting to you and wherever you're spending the most time, we want to be there with you. All right, that's enough from me for today. We are looking forward already to next weekend. Why? Because we get to be together again here at Compass Online.